There we go. Share my screen again. Are you seeing the actual proper slides? Great, wonderful. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the NAGT webinar series. Our series is a one-stop shop for increasing our community's capacity in earth education. Webinars in our series also feature novel and innovative work such as earth education, research, and pedagogy, new teaching materials, and the classroom and professional experiences of people just like you. The webinar series is free and open to the public. Sometimes people ask if it's okay to send information along about the webinars to your colleagues. Yes, please invite them. The more the merrier. Also, throughout the webinar kit, please use the chat box as a place for discussion, questions, any comments you have. Additionally, you can use the reactions tab to give cute little emojis. I'm a fan. Not everyone's cup of tea, though. Otherwise, in terms of interacting with each other, please remember that we follow the NAGT Code of Conduct. I'll drop the link in the chat once I'm finished speaking so that if anyone wants to review it, you can. Today in our webinar, as you can see on my slide, we will be getting a little introduction to 3 different EER workshops. Michelle Cauley will introduce soil science, bridging geology and environmental science in a sustainable world. Jessica Swann will introduce create engaging and immersive earth science field explorations for your classroom. And Karen Kortz will introduce conducting scholarship of teaching and learning in your courses. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to our speakers now.
All right, well, I guess I'll jump in first. All right, I was the first one on the top, so I'm going to jump in. I'll just start off by saying hi. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Michelle Cauley, or Shell Cauley. I'm teaching up at Dakota College of Botany up in North Dakota. I've been teaching K-12 in Minnesota for the last 20 years, and I'm originally from Wisconsin. So I keep moving further west. It's an ongoing joke in our family. I really enjoy warm weather and the ocean, and I'm moving further away and into colder weather. But it's all right. I'm excited to come out to the EER for the first time this year. So I'm talking about soil science. I'm going to share my screen and talk a little bit about my program. All right. Do you see my first slide on soil science? Fantastic. All right, and can everyone hear me okay? Beautiful. All right, well, I'm a very passionate geologist and a geology instructor, and I had the opportunity to start teaching about soil science the last few years and realized that it's a whole exciting world that really isn't touched on by many schools, many programs. So I will be talking about how to bring soil science into your classrooms and how to teach it hands-on in an exciting way. On Thursday, I will be doing this workshop from 1:30 to 4. So in our workshop, the goals we're going to talk about, and I'm going to kind of talk about in this little 15-minute blurb here how we're going to reach these 4 goals. So we're going to enhance your understanding of fundamental soil science principles and concepts. We're going to explore exciting teaching methodologies. If you can tell by my excitement, I am not a stand and lecture kind of person. We are going to be active. We're going to get our hands dirty. Yes, we're going to get our hands full of soils. It's not just dirt, it's a living, breathing thing. So we're going to get in and showcase how you can bring this excitement into your classroom. We're going to collaborate and network among other geoscience educators that are interested in soils. And we're going to explore interdisciplinary approaches. So how can you take this outside just the science program? I'd say a great focus is primarily, or a great audience would be primarily the K-12 group or any outreach educators, but I've run this program for some of our soil science educators at some of our two-year universities as well, who were very excited to see how they could bring more hands-on approaches into their soil science classes. So how we're going to meet those goals? Well, by enhancing those fundamental soil science concepts, we're going to talk about the 12 soil orders. We're going to talk about how our soil, how we classify soils in the United States is completely different. How they do it in Europe, how they do it in Canada, how they do it in Australia. It's not as simple as geology, where we have igneous, sedimentary, metamorphic rocks, and everyone agrees. In the world of soil, everyone is a little different. We all sort of have a couple key understandings, but at the same time, our soils around the world are so different that we all have different ways of classifying them. We do all, though, as soil scientists and agronomists, we all agree that we have soil horizons, so our layers of our soil and what that means. We're going to talk about soil colors. There's a whole Munsell chart based around different soil colors, and we're going to talk about how to read that. And Munsell is the official, they're responsible for the international naming of colors. There's a Munsell Soil Color of the Year that fashion is all about. You know, this year's color is some peach color, but they're responsible for naming all of our soil colors as well, which is pretty fascinating. We're going to talk about chlorpt. And if you don't know what chlorpt is, you'll have to come find out, because I'm not going to say more than that, except we're going to talk about chlorpt. We're going to do some soil testing, and we're going to learn all about the entire ecosystem that is in our soil. In one spoon of soil, there are more organisms in that spoonful than there are living on this planet that we can see. So above the soil, there's more organisms in that little spoonful. So we're going to talk about that whole ecosystem. We're going to explore some innovative teaching methodologies and get you in some hands-on experiments. I'm going to be bringing in soils from a whole bunch of other states. Did you know you can travel with soil from other states on a plane? And you need very little, you need to have very little paperwork involved. You cannot bring soil from Hawaii or Mexico, but you can from certain parts of Canada. So we'll talk about how you can get soil brought into your classroom from other states as well. And then we're going to make some connections to our state standards and make some interdisciplinary lesson connections, such as, I'm going to keep going. Actually, I'll talk about that in another slide. We're going to foster some collaboration and networking among our geoscience educators. So we're going to network, brainstorm, and collaborate on how you can bring these concepts in and make them accessible to your students. And then explore interdisciplinary approaches. So besides science, where else can we talk about soils? Well, we're going to talk about how you can paint with soils, and using all those different soil colors, you can connect it to an art standard. You can connect soils to social studies and history. You can connect it to math. Yes, we're going to do math. It's exciting. All those things. So our program overview, we're going to use welcome, introductions, group norms, and then we're going to do an introductory game. So do you know your soils? Do you know what cool soils you have from your state? And do you know some basic facts about soils, things that all geology teachers need to know? Because soil is part of geology as a science. We're going to talk about how soils, geology, environmental science, biology, how it's all connected. And then we're going to get up and get moving and get hands-on and start doing some different experiments. So a couple different experiments. I won't ruin the surprise, but I mean, we've got a soil order pageant going on. We're going to have a blast. But we're going to get dirty. So be prepared. You get the soil, get some, we'll have gloves just in case you don't want to get your hands too dirty. But we're going to send you back with a lot of hands-on activities and things you can take back to your learners. We'll do our parking lot questions. We'll do some lab observations, wrap up, and then adjourn. The big thing is, why soils? And To me, it's important. It's, as a geologist, it incorporates ecology, biology, environmental science. It's so critical to understanding, especially where we're at right now. It wasn't even a real, true science or considered a studyable science until the 19th century. It was actually just grouped into geology. Most scientists back in the early 18th century thought soils were all the same, that it was a dead thing, that there was, it was all the same around the world. It was something to be mastered. It was something to just, be utilized, and it did no good for us other than we could plant things in it. But it wasn't until the 19th century where it was really, really looked into as this is a living, breathing ecosystem in itself, and it's connected to geology, and it really needs to be its own science that we study. Soil connects us all. So everything we eat at one point has a connection to the ground, whether or not that's the meat that we are eating, and that used to eat something from the ground, or any other item that we're eating that grew out of the ground. Soil is also the world's largest carbon store. So when we're talking about elements in geology, it is the world's largest carbon store, larger than trees. It holds more carbon, and so it needs to be treated well and respected, and we need to do great things for our soil. It's a vital living ecosystem, and it's supporting all of us here. And it has some great geology connections, because the geology in your area determines what kind of soil you end up with and what you can do with that soil. Soil education really matters. The soil education has started to get put into, it's been slightly put into our NGSS, our National Next Generation Science Standards, but only about 20 states in our country have actually fully adopted them. Another 10 have partially adopted those standards, and that only accounts for 36% of our student population. So as a whole, only about 36% of our students are getting a full education on soils and why they're important. Tennessee and Georgia have them specifically built into their standards, so they're doing a fantastic job. But really, that focus is also mainly in high school. And by then, that might be 11th and 12th grade, and that might be a little too late. We need students to know about soils right now, and this is teachable at any age. I've got a kindergartner who can tell you the soil horizons and what's going on in that soil and why it's important. So it can be taught at any age, and it needs to be taught at all ages. So in this workshop, we're going to get you excited about soils, get you a bunch of websites, lessons, some outreach places to look for, places that will send you free stuff to connect your soils to your geology, to any of your earth science, get you a lot of freebies, and get you excited to start diving into soils, because soils need our help. We need to do more with our soil education. And as a geologist, I'm excited to dive in and start connecting some of our other sciences, because sometimes geology is siloed. You're learning about earth science, but it's very much, just the earth, just rocks, the rock cycle, natural disasters. But the soil has a lot to do with how the rest of the world is running right now. And different soils are based on the geologies of those of your area and of your geography. So it's all connected, and it's an exciting science. And so I hope you are excited about learning about soils and how to bring that into your earth science classrooms. So I guess I should say, any questions specifically about this workshop? I know we'll hold the most of the other questions till later, but I'll stop with any questions. All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you are as excited about soils as I am, and I hope to see you on the Thursday of Earth Educators Rendezvous. Thank you.
All righty, I guess we transition to us now. So, Shell, I'm just going to tell you that I'm really excited. I just totally imagine an entire Magic School Bus. Use the word dive in multiple times, and I was like, I am diving into soil. So
Love it.
I love it too. Okay, so let me do a quick screen share. So hi everyone. Thank you all for allowing us to join and share a little bit about the workshop that we have planned. My name is Jessica Swann, and I am the community manager of a little NASA-funded project called Infiniscope. I myself am also a former classroom teacher. I taught ninth grade for 9 years, pretty much all the content areas. I know, bless my heart, ninth graders. I love ninth graders. They're basically glorified middle schoolers. They're the best. Anywho, um, also with me here on the line is Mel Narish. Mel, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I also was in the classroom. I taught elementary school, middle school, and high school, and a little bit of undergrad in lots of different areas. And I also work on the Infiniscope project, and I'm really excited about creating some immersive lessons with y'all.
Absolutely. All right, so our workshop is titled Creating Engaging and Immersive Earth Science Field Trip Explorations. I know that is a mouthful. Basically, what we're creating are virtual field trips. So I want to tell you a little bit about Infiniscope. If you've never heard anything about us, as I mentioned earlier, we are a NASA-funded project. We're based out of Arizona State University. We're in the School of Earth and Space Exploration. And the Infiniscope project itself really predominantly what we are is a digital teaching network. So we create a whole variety of content. And if you're looking for stuff that you can use right off the shelf, that's NGSS designed and aligned, we have that stuff for you. But if you are the type of person that you like to create your own things, we have additional resources that are available to you, which are tools. So the tool that we'll be talking about in our workshop is Torrit. So Torrit is a tool that enables you to create your own virtual field trips, because one thing we know, field trips are expensive, it's hard to get buses, accessibility is an issue, but we know the value of creating virtual field trips or taking our students on virtual field trips. So the tools that we use to create the virtual field trips that we create, we actually give you access to those. But it's not just about giving you access to the tools, but it's also about being able to provide training. So Mel has been working her little heart out over the last few months, creating professional development modules that we've been working on over the last few years, but we've really got, I mean, they're real nice right now. So she's going to be helping us with rolling out the training for this particular workshop. And we have lots of asynchronous modules that you can join in on. We have summer training. So we have lots of ways for you to engage. But yes, so it's not just about the tools, but it's also about how you can effectively use these tools to create these digital place-based learning experiences. And it is our goal to transform learning, to embrace exploration of the unknown and at scale. That's ultimately the reason why we go digital, is that it does allow us to be able to expand our reach at scale. And everything that we create, at least as far as the off-the-shelf content, we use what we call the exploration learning loop, which we pique a learner's curiosity, we drive them to explore, they make some sort of discoveries, and as you know, discoveries always lead to curiosity. And these are the kinds of things that we would like to be able to share with you in the workshop, is how do you create a tour or a virtual field trip that really piques the students' curiosity and drives them to do some exploration and make some discoveries on their own. A little hint, we call this our exploration learning loop here within our center. Really just a little secret, it's the 5E inquiry model. So we just renamed it because, you know, that's what we do. Anywho, all right. So the big thing I want you to take away from this is making a tour is in fact possible. So we have ways for you to be able to create your own. So what I have is a short video that literally is going to walk you through just the tool itself, how you can actually create a virtual tour. And I feel like I didn't share sound. So let me stop and try one more time, just out of fear. Share screen. Oh, I did. Okay, great. Not the right one. One more time. That's the one. sharing sound. All right, everyone can see the correct screen now, yes? All right, here we go.
Tour creates an interactive environment where you can use digital storytelling to convey a sense of place about a location. This video will show you the steps to making a basic tour and is paired with media assets for you to replicate the tour. Once you are familiar with the tool, we recommend learning more about place-based learning through Infiniscope's workshops and resources to build quality narrative tours that will engage your audience. To start a project, click the plus icon. Then name your project by clicking on the pencil icon next to the largest letters and typing the name. You can change the name at any time. Upload a JPEG panorama by either dragging the file into the Upload Panoramas field or by clicking to browse and find the file. Spherical panoramas, or panos, that are 360 degrees with a high resolution will work best, but there is a 10 megabyte size limit for any file added to a tour. You can then rename the panos. You can also delete existing content, like this blank panorama used as an example. Next, click on the panorama to open the panorama editor. Here you can view, edit, and add hotspots like media and links to the pano. To edit the information presented by the pano, click on the pencil icon to open a pop-up window where you can name the pano, type a description, and even add sound like MP3 audio. Click on the green check on the top right when finished adding the information. To maneuver in the tour, click and drag to change the view. Scroll up and down to zoom in and out. Click on the mountain icon to set a starting position or default view within the pano. To add hotspots, like media and links to the pano, click on the Add a Hotspot button. A pop-up menu will appear. There are many kinds of hotspots to choose from within the tool, as seen in the drop-down menu. For the first hotspot, let's connect this pano to a second one. You can then rename the pano and move the hotspot. At any point, you can preview your project by clicking on the binoculars icon to preview the project in the browser window. Though there are thumbnails to access panos at the bottom, the hotspots can guide viewers in a non-linear way as well. To go back to the editor, close the tab when finished previewing, as was done here off screen. Let's add some more hotspots to this example. To move to another pano, use the double arrows or move with a hotspot. Double-click to add the hotspot. You can also drag it to a better location. Use the drop-down to choose the type of hotspot to add and fill in the information associated with that hotspot. For a text hotspot, select the button from the menu or double-click. The hotspots here were added by double-clicking. An image hotspot can take JPEG, PNG, and GIF files. You can also add PDFs. And you could add videos using either Vimeo or YouTube. You must make sure the YouTube or Vimeo videos are not set to private for others to be able to view them in the tour. Finally, websites can be added. Some websites do not have permissions to be viewable in tools like this, so you should check them in preview mode to make sure they work. You can see a menu of all the hotspots added by clicking on the Toggle Hotspots Table button on the Pano menu to the right. This menu will allow you to see each hotspot within the menu, and also, if you click on the menu item, it will show you the hotspot within the pano. Once you have edited your pano, you can add more panos to the project by leaving the editor and clicking on the panoramas in the navigation bar. Once you are ready to share your tour, click on the Share button in the menu to get a shareable link. The link to the project will be shown in a pop-up window, allowing you to copy the link to the clipboard or open the tour in a new tab. Now that your project is publicly shareable, you will see a couple of new icons appear in the toolbar. You can make your tour private by clicking on the Make Private button, and the link will no longer work. By clicking it again, it will be public using the exact same link as before. If you make changes to your tour after making it public, click on the Update Changes button to save those changes and push them out. These changes will be updated using the same link.
All right, that's good enough. That at least get you under the hood. So I know you're probably thinking, well, what do I need the workshop for? Well, the reason you need the workshop is how do you build a quality tour? So anyone can just slap media into one of these tools. The trick is whether or not we can build it in a way that is engaging our students or our learners to explore the environment and really kind of tease out what the importance of that environment is. Again, moving on. Thank you. So what I want to do real quick is share a handful of tours with you that you all can kind of tinker with and get a sense of the types of things that can be created. So here you'll see that there is a smattering. So we have something from the Challenger Center. So you can actually go through the Challenger Center, kind of see how it is organized, how it's set up, what are the, it's kind of like an orientation. These are really great to prepare your students or a field trip group before you actually go on site somewhere. A lot of times it actually helps to reduce anxiety of the participants when they attend. The Mississippi is a really great example of being able to fold in some of the cultural relevancy of a particular site. And then Grand Canyon Caverns is just a really great way to get someplace that is usually very difficult. It's very inaccessible for most people, but it's something that it may be something that you would reference in your own instruction. So I'll leave those there for you. You all can kind of tinker with those, play with them a little bit, get a sense of the types of things that can be created. And what I want to do is a quick overview of the workshop itself. So there are three major parts. So there is actually a pre-rendezvous field trip that is super advantageous. If you take advantage of the field trip, then you actually are already creating media, something that you can build your virtual field trip around when we do the workshop. So the field trip itself, we highly recommend that you actually use this because then you'll have media that's available. I will be present at the field trip. I will be taking some 360 panos during the field trip. So that media will be available. And I'll also take my own photos and videos to make that available to those who participate in the workshop. But as far as the pre-workshop, what we're looking at is that is Sunday. It is from 7:45 to 2:15. We will rally at Temple University, and there are two locations that we'll stop at along the way. When I say we, I am not organizing this workshop. I am just tagging along. So if you have questions very specifically about the workshop, I highly recommend, not the workshop. If you have questions about the field trip, I highly recommend that you connect with the organizers. There is some detail about what you should wear, what you should bring. A couple of things that I've kind of added here beyond what is available on the EER website. They say bring a camera. I'm saying bring a cell phone so that you can capture images and video. So you have it all at the same spot, and also a notepad so you can gather info. So what is the critical information that you would want to be able to share with a learner? Also hiking distance and elevation change, that is on there too, but just making people aware. And registration. So it is limited to 20 participants. Registration is $100. That does include your transportation and the box lunch. One more time, I am not organizing the field trip. So if you have questions about the field trip, you want to direct those to the organizers, Lily Pfeiffer and Aaron Barth. But if you do go on the field trip and you come to the workshop, like I said, you already have things that are available to start building your virtual workshop, your virtual field trip. So we'll cover the basics of like how you create a virtual tour. You'll have time to actually build. There'll be an opportunity for you to do some evaluation and some iteration of your tour. And essentially, you're going to walk away from this with a virtual field trip that you can deploy immediately as soon as you leave this workshop. So we'll be meeting on Thursday and Friday from 8:30 to 11:30. So it's both mornings, which means you can go to my stuff and then you can also go to Shell's because she'll be in the afternoon on Thursday. I'm not sure what time Karen's is, but maybe We'll see. And we'll be somewhere on campus. I don't know where we're going to be yet, but we'll be there. Day one, we will strictly focus on what is a virtual tour and why use a virtual tour. We'll also talk about what makes it a high quality tour and how do you design for a high quality tour. And then day two, we'll talk some tips about actually building the tour. So there are some like step-by-step things that make it a little bit easier. You'll have time to build your tour, and then you'll have time to evaluate and make improvements to it. And then we'll also have a sharing session. One thing we do encourage is that you join that field trip so that you have a seed of an idea, or you come prepared with an idea about a field trip, a virtual field trip that you may want to build. This workshop does require that you create a free Infiniscope account. We are NASA funded and it is free. However, there are limitations to that because we are a NASA funded project. Accounts are limited to US citizens and permanent residents. And finally, we offer a stipend. So if you do the field trip prior to the workshop, we will reimburse you for that. So if you join the pre-rendezvous, the stipend reimbursement will come through. It's $100 for your participation. To receive that, you must attend the field trip, complete the workshop. There is some paperwork that you will have to complete. So there's a form that you have to complete with ASU to get us into our system. And then there's a participant certification form that you'll have to sign in order to receive payment. The stipend is issued directly from ASU and it's sent to your mailing address. One thing to keep in mind is if you want to go for this, they will not issue a 1099. So when you get down to tax season, no 1099s. And again, because of funding stipulations, we are limited to US citizens and permanent residents. And that is the quick run through of what we plan to do at the workshop. So if there's a time relevant, very specific question you want to ask right now, either Mel or I can answer that, or we can take more questions at the end. Either way. Gotta give that wait time. All right. Then my time is done. We'll hand off to Karen.
Great, thank you. So I am so excited about the two workshops that have already been presented. My name is Karen Kortz, and I teach at the Community College of Rhode Island. And let me share my screen. Okay. So my workshop is going to be a bit kind of a different take on things. And I'm going to be presenting about the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, or SOTL, and how to do that in your own courses. And I'm presenting this workshop on Thursday afternoon. So the workshop goals, by the end of the workshop, participants will be able to summarize the steps involved in SOTL, and I will define SOTL, to write and review SOTL research questions that span a variety of interests and topics, and also then to identify and evaluate different strategies of SOTL study design, data collection, and analysis. So first of all, what is SOTL? The Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, it's the systematic study by instructors of the impact of their teaching on the learning of students, and then also sharing the results. So you're looking at what you're doing in your own classes, and seeing kind of what the impact is. And there's a lot of reasons to do it, but kind of one kind of big picture reason to do it is that it does help us makes us more informed instructors, and therefore we can really try to work with that information in improving our student outcomes. So there are 5 steps of the SOTL process, and the first step is to generate a research question. And after you generate the research question, then you design the study. How do you answer that research question? And then once you have that design, you then will collect your data, then analyze that data that you collected, draw conclusions. And finally, the last step, which is an important part of it is to present and share your SOTL results. Otherwise, you know the data, but it doesn't add to the larger literature. And so that's, that's an important part of SOTL. And I'm going to talk today a bit about generating a research question and designing the study. And that's what we're going to end up focusing on also in the workshop. But in the workshop, we'll talk more also about the collecting the data and analyzing the data as well, and ways to share your results. I'll talk a little bit more though, focusing on the research question and designing the study right now. Okay. So there's a bunch of types of research questions, and you can kind of divide them into different categories. And one type of research question is to look at what works. So you're studying the effectiveness of teaching practices and approaches. So you can look at, like, did this activity, was it effective? Or I designed this virtual field trip. Was it effective? I did some soil analysis, was it effective? Another type of question is to look at why it works. Why was it effective or why was it not effective? And that's a harder question to answer. So if you're just starting out with SOTL, it's a lot easier to start with if it works, not why it works. You can also look at what are students coming in already knowing? What's their prior knowledge? And just kind of, you're not doing really like an experiment where you are changing something and then seeing the results of that. You're just kind of looking at what's happening with the students. And finally, you can kind of have a reflective SOTL question. And that's often kind of looking at your own teaching and whether that teaching, what you're doing, is it structured to achieve its goals. So for example, you can look at like your assignments or quizzes or exams, and do they match the learning outcomes or something like that? Like, are you structuring everything to help the students and achieve what you want them to achieve? All right, so I'm actually going to give you a minute to take some of these research question types and to do a little brainstorming. Jot down some ideas, and see if you can come up with some. If there's one that you kind of lean more towards, or if you can come up with an idea for each of these. But take 1 minute to do that. Okay. So another aspect of research questions is you can look at some of the learning domains. So you can look at the cognitive domain, and that's looking at like knowledge attainment and kind of the intellectual processes. But you can also look at the affective domain, emotions, and that includes interests and attitudes, values, motivations, and beliefs. And you can also look at the psychomotor domain. So that's the motor skills that require physical coordination. And so your research questions can also address these different domains. It doesn't have to be, did this assignment work in students learning knowledge, but it could also be, did the virtual field trip help students feel more motivated, or excited, some sort of emotion? Or was touching the soil samples, did that affect like students attitudes or their emotions towards learning in the soil and geology and earth? So I'll give you a bit less than a minute to kind of look at these different domains now and see if you can fit your research questions, think about them with these different domains. Okay. So now that you have some ideas for research questions, then you get to design your study. So this is going to be how you answer your research question. So there's, things you need to think about. Who do you want to study? Um, what data will be convincing to help you answer your research question? When will you collect your data? How will you collect your data? And some examples of sources of data include questionnaires. So you can have a questionnaire that you distribute to the students. You can also look at work the students already doing in the class. Like if you're looking at knowledge gained, maybe you can use your exam questions, or you can look at some sort of like end of semester project. You can also, those are the two kind of easiest ways to collect data, but you can also do interviews of students. You can lead focus groups where you're kind of interviewing a group of students instead of just one. You can also have someone make observations in your classroom as well. So now that you're having a few brainstormy ideas for research questions, now I'm going to give you about 30 seconds or so to jot down some ideas of a study design, how you can answer your research questions. All right. So again, we kind of briefly went through the first two steps of the SOTL process, generating a research question, which is one of the hardest, but probably the most important step, then designing the study and things to think about. And in the workshop, we will spend a lot more time on those, giving you more feedback and having feedback from me, feedback from other participants on the research question, designing the study. And then we'll also talk about how do you collect the data? And then analyzing the data that you collected, including quantitative data, which you can distill into numbers, and qualitative data, which are really the words, and drawing the conclusions. And finally, we'll talk about different ways you can present and share your SOTL project, including at the rendezvous in the future, but also like a GSA presentation. HEU has presentations, and then the Journal of Geoscience Education is another venue where you can publish your SOTL projects. So again, my workshop is conducting scholarship of teaching and learning in your courses. I'm Karen Kortz, and my workshop is Thursday afternoon from 1:30 to 4 o'clock. And I think now probably we are heading into question time.
Does anyone have any specific questions for Karen? All right.
Karen, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Has this type of techniques been used for assessment, like for program assessments or class assessment in the past? Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you can definitely use this as assessment. It is a way to, inform your teaching. Assessment often has the goal, though, of really being very internally driven. You are doing it for yourself or for your program, and you're not doing it to share the results. And SOTL has that distinction of part of the purpose is to share your findings externally to help build that body of research.
Thank you.
Yep. But the strategies that you would use for SOTL, you can also use for assessment. It's very helpful for that.
Does anyone have any general questions? That's okay. I actually had a few questions as we were going through each of your presentations. So maybe while other people are reflecting on whether or not they have questions, we can get through some of those. And I'm sorry if there's a lot of background noise. It seems like one of my neighbors has started mowing, which I unfortunately do not have control over. Let me just double check the chat for a second to make sure I didn't miss any questions there. No? Okay. So I had like kind of like a fun little question for you, I guess. So will you be traveling to Rendezvous with soil?
Yes. I had I used to be a Girl Scout camp director before I became a teacher. So, you know, previous life. And so I have a lot of friends and family and old students and scouts who are all over our wonderful states. And when I started here at Dakota College, I said, hey, send me some soil. And so they all sent me soil. And so I have soil right now currently from 22 different states. And throughout my travels, I'm collecting more, but I will be traveling with soil from about 15 of those states. So we'll be able to dive in and explore different textures and different makeups of soils from all over. Before I even started teaching soils, I thought all soil was very similar. You know, I'm like, it's just soil. And it's fascinating, the textures, the colors, it's so cool. So I will be bringing lots of fun soil to play with.
That's awesome. Sounds like a good sensory experience. Um, I also had another question for Jessica. You were showing Torrit, right? That's the platform's called.
Yes.
And I was wondering, I know that at some institutions, access to technology, it can be like a barrier, like two-way use, for example. And I was wondering if Torrit is compatible with phones. Not necessarily setting it up, but doing the
Excellent.
field trip itself.
Yes. So, yeah, creating the tool or creating your tour, we highly recommend using a laptop, desktop, that sort of thing. But the delivery of the tour, it generates just a URL. So number one, there's a lot of ways to unpack your question, Ashley. So I'm going to try to tackle as many as I can. So number one, because it's just a general URL, you don't have to worry about anything with privacy issues. So if you have to fill out paperwork, it's just like accessing any website that's available online. So there's that one. The other thing is that yes, it is in fact mobile friendly. So you can access it on a phone, you can access it on Chromebooks, you can do it on iPads if that's what you use. Small word of caution, there is one little tiny user interface thing that kind of bugs all of us, and we're looking at how we can change it. If you do open it on a cell phone, there's an info box that loads immediately on the screen, and it's really large. So you have to it covers the entire interface to start with. And then once you close it, it's great, but just as a word of caution.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, actually, one more to add on top of it.
ooh.
We just recently also implemented a VR option with it. So if you have access to a Meta Quest, you can actually take these tours and you can project them into VR mode so your learners can experience it in real life. Can literally dive into those soils, Shell.
Lots of diving. My question for you, Karen, is kind of like there's like two layers to it almost. I was wondering if SOTL, is that how you say the acronym? Now I'm doubting myself. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's total. Yep.
So is SOTL classified as human subjects research? And so do educators who are at like institutions with IRBs and institutional review boards need to get approval in order to conduct.
Yes. Yeah. So SOTL is human subjects research. And so I will talk about this briefly in the workshop. So it is something that you would need to get institutional review board review to demonstrate that you're not harming the students and to demonstrate that you are getting their permission to use their data. Yeah.
Awesome. It sounds like really great introduction to that. I know too that it can be a little bit intimidating to try to like enter into like a whole new field and discipline, right? Will there be some sort of introduction into the existing body of scholarship?
Not too much directly, but I will give examples. And I am happy to talk about, with whoever is participating, I'm happy to talk about ideas and talk about like what I know of what has already been done. So I work with SOTL at my institution and work with other faculty and help guide other faculty to do it. But I'm also the curriculum and instruction editor at the Journal of Geoscience Education. And so I also see kind of bigger and more complete projects that are submitted to the journal. So I also help, guide faculty with the publication of SOTL as well. So I kind of have lots of experience, but kind of, extreme ends where people are just starting, they've never done it before, and then people that are publication ready.
Thank you. I want to take a pause with my questions and see if anyone else has any questions. Okay, I'm just gonna go right back through the same order. Shal, you were saying that your audience is primarily K through 12 educators, but everyone's welcome. And I was wondering how you envisioned maybe like professors and like teacher ed programs might be able to use or take something away from your workshop.
Yeah, excuse me. The activities that we're going to be doing, there'll be different standards that each individual activity will meet, but we'll have some brainstorming times to talk about how you can elevate these different activities to higher learning levels, or how you can bring them down to the elementary level as well. So with a lot of experience, my last 20 years or so in K-12, I have a lot of opportunities. I've been given a lot of opportunities to take different curriculums and expand the breadth of what activities can reach different age groups. So we'll be taking all these hands-on activities, and here's the activity for this age group, but you can also, here's some resources to take this same activity and dive deeper into a high school level or to a community college level. So we're going to have the opportunities to rotate around and really work with people. I'm hoping, depending on who's attending, hoping to split people up into groups based on the areas that they work in, so that they can be collaborating with those people on, K-12 group over here, the higher HLC crew, higher learning crew over here, to be working with those labs and those hands-on pieces, so they can really focus on what areas or what those lessons would suit them best in when they're teaching. So a lot of collaboration in our hands-on rotations.
That's great. Thank you. And then Jess and Mel, I'm sorry for leaving you out last time, Mel. I was wondering, I think you touched on this a little bit when you were talking about the workshop, because you mentioned how to make a good virtual field trip. And I'm wondering if there is a general review process before any of them are made public or anything like that.
Yeah. Mel, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all experienced when you have an information dump and you just kind of glaze over, and people can make virtual tours that create that. It might look cool, but then you immediately go, oh, this is just text, or this is a bunch of pictures. So we actually have a rubric that not only addresses some of the technical aspects to make sure, it's not pixelated images and things like that, but a rubric that tackles really specific place-based learning strategies that are going to be the things that we discuss in the workshop. So folks will be learning about it, and then they can apply it. And the first time they'll apply it is on a tour that I made, so they can feel very comfortable just tearing it apart because I'm welcoming them to do it. And then that way, hopefully they'll start going, oh, I'm starting to see it in my own stuff. And they can use that rubric to help them grow with their own tours.
That's awesome. I heard rubric and I was just like, oh yes. How exciting. But that probably just says a lot about me as a person.
And it's a true rubric. It's not a checklist. It's an actual true rubric.
Love to hear it. I have more questions for you as well, Karen. So, oh, I know something that some classes and professors or just educators in general, right, especially within geology, are particularly concerned about is inclusion or their student sense of belonging within science. How does that fit into SOTL?
So that would be a really great research question. So that would really fit into the affective domain question, is like that attitudes, the emotions, the feeling of belongingness. And so that's definitely something that you would be able to, look at kind of the big picture. Does like your course or does your program address this? Or you can look at it pretty small, like does this activity, does this assignment help students feel more of a sense of belonging? So it is definitely a really great topic, and it's something that you can look at it with questionnaires, you can do interviews, you can have some sort of reflection assignment and then look at what students are reflecting on. So there's lots of different ways that you can look at sense of belonging.
Great, thank you. Does anyone else have any last minute questions? I got a little bit carried away, I think. Nope. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and send the link to the evaluation in the chat. That's also how you will be able to access the certificate of attendance if you need that. And anyone who needs to hop off now can, and I'm gonna go ahead and close us out. So let me go ahead and share the screen again. Oh, that's not what I want. All righty. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending today. I had such a great time. And thank you, Jessica. You have to run. And Shell and Karen and Mel, your workshops sound really wonderful. And I'm even more excited for the rendezvous than I was before. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. You'll be able to find resources and the recording from today's webinar on the webinar page. Just please give me a few days to get it posted. I do send it out for captioning just so that it's more accessible. Shout outs to Rev and the captioners there who caption our videos. And then on my slide here, you can see our next webinar is In Our Voices. It's a JGE publication. And it'll be the contributors who will be discussing the contributions and the publication itself. Alrighty, am I missing anything else? All of our webinars are recorded. If you ever miss one, you can check out our archive to see them. And thank you. That's all I have left to say. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, our presenters.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful Tuesday, everyone.
You too. Thank you.